Hello and welcome to the supermarket video, which is part of the 3P series Practicing Pseudocode Problems. Please make sure you have a supermarket booklet, pen and coloured pencils handy. So let's get started. In this video you need to be familiar with case statements, functions and modules and parameters. Spend a few moments now reading through these sections in your programming booklet before you continue with the rest of the video. Case statements are a control structure we spent some time looking at when we were in year 11. So as you can see, what we learnt then is used in year 12. Let us spend a few moments reminding ourselves what case statements do. Case statements are part of the selection control structure group. A case statement is used when there are multiple decisions that can be made. As you can see from the slide, a case statement will have its own keywords. These are case and end case. A case statement works with the input putting in a value, in this example, the age of the person. The case statement is given the name. In our example, it is called case age of. We call it this because age is the condition which will determine what action is done. In our second example, it is called case title of, because depending on the title, which is the condition, will determine the action, i.e., what is to be printed. Also note that all of the possible decisions that can be made in a statement are all indented and are between the keywords case and end case. The output will display or print whatever condition has been met. As you may well have seen in a previous video, we are trying to be methodical in how we go about solving a pseudocode problem. It is important that you follow the steps in order to give yourself the best chance of writing the correct pseudocode that will solve the problem. So pause the video for the moment and read the supermarket problem on page 1 a couple of times at least. After we have read the problem at least twice, the next thing that we must do is to identify the inputs, outputs and any processing that is going on in this scenario. We should also be thinking about what type of control structures, such as selections or iterations, we are going to need to help solve this problem. Pause the video again and on page 1 of your booklet use coloured pens to identify the inputs, processing, outputs, as well as any other important information. When you have completed this, restart the video and you can see my annotation on the next slide. So here is my annotation. It talks about the need to calculate and display the delivery charge of an order. Our module is going to be called calc delivery and it will have a parameter called delivery type. The calculation is simply selecting the correct delivery type from the case statement we need to use. Rewind the video to slide 6 and make sure that your annotation is the same as mine. Then once you've done that, continue with this video. If we look at our tick list, we are starting to make some progress in clearly understanding what is needed in our pseudocode solution. On page 2 of our booklet, you have requirements and a table to complete. Pause the video on this slide and complete your requirements and table. By doing this step, we clearly see all the information we need to include in our pseudocode. As you can see, we are working systematically through the question, making sure we have a clear idea of what we need to do. Make sure you too are using your tick sheet and ticking off each of the various stages. The last thing we need to do before we start writing pseudocode is to highlight the elements on our checklist. Firstly, we need to name our module and parameters. We then put in our first keyword begin in capital letters. Now we need to think about our inputs. You will recall that the parameter is called delivery type. This is a by value parameter, which means that this value is not being returned to the main menu, but is needed for the calculation in this module. The delivery type value has already been inputted in the main menu, so it does not need to be inputted again in the module. Now we need to select our control structure, and we have been told to use a case statement. The problem does use the word calculate, but in this case the calculation is selecting the correct delivery charge from the statement. Remember to bookend our case statement with the keyword end case. Finally, as part of the pseudocode solution, we need to display the correct delivery charge within this module. So we will need to output the answer instead of the answer being sent back to the main module. The last element we need to include is the keyword end with the name of the module in brackets. Pause the video again and make sure that your checklist is highlighted the same way as mine. Then continue with the video. So, back to our tick list. We should now have a good idea of what we need to do and be ready to write our pseudocode. Let's start with our first line of pseudocode, and that is the name of the module with the parameter included. We then put in our first keyword, begin. Input is in italics. We do not need to write in the input as the value has been carried across into the calc delivery module using the delivery type parameter. Now we come to the processing phase, and this is in the form of a case statement. Again, let's talk about how to correctly write a case statement. We start with the keyword in capitals. The name of the case statement is given to the condition, so the delivery type could be standard, fast, or priority. We use semicolons to separate the condition section and the action section, which is the delivery charge. The options in the case statement are indented so that it is easy to read. Then, as you can see in the checklist, if we open the case statement, we need to use the end case to close the case statement, as you can see here. Now comes the output. Again, to remind you, the keyword output is in capital letters. What we want to output is in brackets. In speech marks is what we want printed, and the delivery charge is the variable which will display the value which corresponds to the delivery type that was sent from the main module. This particular problem specifically asks for us to output the result in this submodule. Normally, the calc delivery module would have a second parameter next to delivery type, and this would be by reference parameter called delivery charge, and the result would go back to the main module and be displayed there. We now need to close out the submodule and put end with the submodule name in brackets. Here is the complete solution. Please make sure that you have copied this down on page 3 of your booklet. On page 4 of your booklet, we have this problem. Read the problem through carefully at least twice. At the top of page 4, you have a tick list. Please use this tick list and identify all the important elements using coloured pencils. Then on page 5 of your booklet, complete the requirements and the table. Once you have done that, highlight the elements in your checklist you are going to use. When you have completed all of page 5, then have a go at writing the pseudocode. You will need to pause the video now, Then on the next slide is the solution. Use your previous notes in this booklet to help you if you need to. Here is the solution. Hopefully you got all or most of it correct. Have a close look at this pseudocode and ask yourself a question: does it make sense to you? If you have any questions, then please make sure you come and see me. Your attempted solution and my solution should be both written down on page 6 of your booklet. Here is our second task. Pause the video for a moment and read the problem through. You'll see that this problem will involve needing to understand what a function is and how it works. We're going to spend a few moments talking about functions. In some ways, functions are similar to submodules. The main module can call functions and submodules. Functions and modules both have a specific job to do and make the whole algorithm efficient. The difference between a function and a submodule is that if a parameter's values need to be changed, then a module is used. A function is used if only a value is being returned. In the example on this slide, in the main modules, you see both a function and a submodule being called. The function, payCalc, has two parameters, rate and hours. Both of these are by value and will not be returning to the main module. The result, a new value, is being returned through the function name of payCalc. The submodule, calculate tax, the pay parameter is by value and it is needed for the submodule to do its calculation. The tax parameter is by reference and is returning a different value than the one that was sent. This is why payCalc is a submodule and not a function. As always, if I have not made the point clear to you, then please come and see me so we can have a chat. Okay, so let's get started on this task. You should now be quite familiar with our tick sheet. So pause the video and do the first 3 bullet points. As always, use coloured pencils to annotate the problem on page 7. When you are ready, move on to the next slide to see my annotation. On this slide is my understanding of what are the most important elements in this problem. Please make sure that your annotation is like mine. Make sure that your colouring clearly shows where the inputs, processing, outputs and important information is found. Tick those steps off on your tick sheet. Pause the video if you need to, then continue when you're ready. On page 8 of the booklet, fill in the requirements and the table so you can clearly see what needs to be included in your pseudocode. Again, pause the video until you are ready to continue. I can appreciate that working through the steps can be a little tedious, but the more you practice, the quicker you will get, and an awful lot of points can be gained in an exam if we include all of the relevant material. At the bottom of page 8 is your checklist. On the slide are the elements that you will need to include for your pseudocode solution. Please make sure that you highlight the relevant parts in your booklet. So, now you are ready to write the code. Pause the video while you write it, and then when you are ready, go on to the next slide to see the solution. So, here is my solution. Let's work our way through it. We start off with the function name and its parameters. Now, in this function, a submodule is being called. The GST chargeable submodule is returning a value through the product code parameter, which is either true or false. The result, if true, will result in an if statement with the GST charge being calculated. A false result means there is no GST charge. The last line before the end, the function says that whatever the GST charge it is going to be the calc item answer, which is sent back to the main module. Do spend a few moments looking carefully at this solution. Does it make sense to you? Did you include calling the GST chargeable submodule? This is not an easy question. If there is anything you're not sure of, as always, come and see me. Make sure that your answer and mine are written out on page 9 of your booklet. Here is our last problem for this booklet, and it is one I am leaving for you to do on your own, just to see how you're getting on. This problem is on page 10 of your booklet. As always, read the question carefully, use annotation, complete the requirements and the table, and highlight the elements you're going to use in your checklist. After all of this, then write your pseudocode. I look forward to receiving your booklet. Use this slide to make sure that everything is completed in this booklet. Well done for working your way through all of these problems. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.